Hi everyone. I read The Fountainhead this week and thought I would share some of my thoughts on it with you. Some of the comments in my Rational Optimist video encouraged me to read Atlas Shrugged, but when I talked to one of my friends who read Atlas Shrugged to ask if he thought I should read it, he said I should read The Fountainhead instead because it was kind of a shorter version and he thought it was better. So I haven't read Atlas Shrugged yet, but maybe I will. I did quite like The Fountainhead, but I'm a philosophical novice. I did an AS level in philosophy, which for those of you who don't know means that I got half a qualification in philosophy and studied it for 1 year. But I didn't even get the AS in the end because I failed, essentially. It's the only subject I've ever failed. I did really badly, so you can see I'm not very equipped to really analyze the philosophy of objectivism aside from how it relates to the plot of The Fountainhead. I'll try to keep the spoilers to a minimum of one part of the video. I know it's a very old book and some people think it's silly to warn about spoilers for a book that's been out for, what is it, over 50 years, 60 years? The main character of the story is the architect Howard Rourke, who is a kind of hyper-competent, very talented but misunderstood architect. The character of Howard Rourke, kind of like all of the characters in the story, are not proper human characters the way that in the way that most fiction is written, where the characters have a sort of fully developed personality with flaws and ambitions and lots of little quirks. He's kind of, the character of Rourke is just a archetypal representation of the philosophy of objectivism, as far as I can tell. He's not a real human being, but while reading The Fountainhead, I got this kind of odd feeling that me and Ayn Rand and I had something in common, which is, well, I don't really know how much a man can understand this, and I know a lot of my viewers are men, which is why I'm trying to explain this feeling. But I think Ayn Rand being attracted to men, sort of sexually in her personal life, has a kind of strange impact on the way that she views men as a population. So she, in The Fountainhead, there's this huge, over and over again, she comes back to this idea of this super productive, amazing, artistic mind of man, that the hyper competent male mind being the driving force, or I mean, that's what The Fountainhead, the title, refers to, right? The fountainhead of all knowledge, the source of all beauty and functionality in the world is these super amazing men, which isn't to say all men, but these amazing people who change the world for the better are men. But that's what's sort of coming across as a theme in the book, at least, and I can really sort of empathize with that kind of idea. I mean, obviously, I'm not talking about the actual world or like scientific fact, or I'm kind of talking about archetypes here, which is something I've learned from Jordan Peterson, but I'm not really acquainted with it. But thinking about archetypes really helped me when trying to understand The Fountainhead. So the archetype of the I don't even know what you'd call it, the super competent, the hyper competent man, like Howard Rourke in the story. I think both Ayn Rand and I have trouble separating that admiration for the achievements of man with a kind of sexual attraction to these very sort of dominant males. Although that's kind of what I wanted to talk about, is the difference between well, there's a kind of idea in society about dominance hierarchies among men and how women choose their mates. And women, there's a trope of women going out with, or being sexually attracted to guys who are mean to them, or guys who are jerks, just nasty mean men, instead of the nice gentlemen that they should be having sex with because they're better people. And I kind of started to understand a little bit better reading The Fountainhead and having this sort of weird experience of being sexually attracted to the fictional character Howard Rourke, and thinking about sort of 50 Shades of Grey and Christian Grey. I haven't read 50 Shades of Grey, but I understand that the draw of the book is this sort of millionaire character who's completely sexually exotic and sadistic and all this sort of thing. And I just started thinking about, what is it about nice guys and jerks that either attracts or repels women? And I kind of came to the conclusion that the thing about Howard Rourke and about other typically sexy characters like Han Solo, or I don't know, if for anime fans, Spike Spiegel from Cowboy Bebop, or what is it that's so, I mean, for me at least, I can't speak for all women, obviously. I don't even know that many, don't even talk about this sort of thing with many women, so if you're a girl and you're listening to this and you don't know what I'm talking about, then please tell me, because I don't know what I'm talking about. So I think that what unites this sort of sexual appeal of these characters is that they don't look to anyone else for approval. It's not that they're jerks, it's that they're not constantly seeking approval from either the woman that they're trying to court or from anyone else. They're alpha, they're at the top of the hierarchy, but they don't even care about the hierarchy. They're not bossing people about. They don't particularly care whether anyone likes them or not. And I don't know what it is, but that is so attractive about that. But I think that's really epitomized in The Fountainhead, where Rourke cares so little about what other people think that it borders on psychopathic. I mean, I'm not a psychologist. I don't really know about the definition of a psychopath or autism or that sort of thing. But it's really like his personality is not normal. It's not he doesn't have feelings like a proper human being. I talked in my video when I mentioned Adam Smith, the theory that people wish to be loved and to be lovely, which is to say they seek others' approval and they want to be worthy of that approval. But Ayn Rand is sort of proposing this counterpoint that that's not a good way to live your life, and to be truly great, one must seek greatness above, for its own sake. You should want to build an amazing skyscraper for the sake of the skyscraper alone, for your own artistic satisfaction, rather than trying to please other people or to impress other people. I think I was just thinking about, what is it about bragging and showing off that is so unattractive? I mean, I think some people fall for it and they end up admiring these people who are bragging, but I think that's only because they don't really realize that they're bragging. To admire someone who's bragging and showing off is usually to not even notice that they're doing it to impress you. You're just looking at the talent that they're showing off and not really looking at how pathetic it is that they want to impress you. But I mean, I say it's pathetic, but it's what everyone does. It's just a fact of life. It's only this this archetypal fictional character who can aspire to not care what anyone thinks about him all the time. But I don't even think that's a very good way to live, is the thing. I wouldn't want to be married to Howard Rourke. Let's put it that way. I want to be married to someone who's trying to keep me happy and who makes me laugh and cares about, who asks for my permission when they're gonna, make a big life decision. I want them to care about my approval. So I don't, even though I'm sexually attracted to Rourke, I don't want to be in a. I wouldn't, if he was a real person, I wouldn't be in a long-term committed relationship with him, and I definitely wouldn't marry him. That just sounds like a nightmare. So the counter character to Howard Rourke is Peter Keating, and he's also very good at architecture. He's a good architect as well, and he designs things the way he knows people will like them, rather than how Rourke just designs what he likes. Keating makes buildings the way that he knows will impress people, and he makes them standard and makes it like the other buildings people like. And in his social life as well, he does things to please his mother rather than doing what he wants. He does things because his mum tells him to, and he starts off as being really pleased with himself and happy, and he climbs his way to the top of an architecture firm, but through a series of sort of mistakes, he ends up being miserable at the end of the book, whereas Rourke is completely like level. Nothing ever happens to him in a spiritual sense in the story. He starts off knowing who he is and being absolutely a perfect representation of what man should be, and he just stays that way for the entire story. He never changes. He never really, he doesn't even get better at architecture. He just, he does a little bit, but that's not even the point of the story. He's just he's perfect for the whole thing, which is, to be honest, I don't think a very good way to write a character, but that's, if Ayn Rand was trying to, make a point about philosophy, she wasn't trying to do a hero's journey, like in the sort of Star Wars hero with a thousand faces sense. Back to Peter Keating, I think he's much more of a typical type of character. He's more similar to most human beings that walk around, in the sense that he seeks other people's approval, which is a very normal thing to do. And if I had to choose between the extremes of Keating and Rourke, of which I'm more similar to, I'm definitely more of a Keating. It's very upsetting to me when I find someone doesn't like me. If I meet them in real life, and if I have a conversation with them and then I can tell they're getting bored, like that really worries me. And if I say something that offends them, I think about it for hours. If I say something to someone and then they say, well, that really upset me, or they get upset, or we get into an argument, that kind of thing really bothers me. And I can't make myself believe that that's evil, or if that's sort of flawed in the way that Ayn Rand thinks it is. Oh, as far as I can tell, the way she writes about selfishness and selflessness, the way that she says if all men were truly selfish, then the world would be a better place. I understand why she says that in some senses, and that it would be, if all men were completely selfish, there could be no nationalism, there could be no fascism, there could be no wars, because no one would give their life for their country, because they'd be interested in keeping themselves happy. So, writing in the time that she did, I can understand where her ideas are coming from, but to say that being completely selfish is a good way to live your personal life, I can't really imagine that going well if applied to its fullest extent. Although I think in the world that we live in at the moment, certainly a lot of people could take a lesson from the Fountainhead and from objectivism, but to go the whole way, I think would be a little bit crazy. I'm sorry for all those objectivism fans out there who told me to read Atlas Shrugged, but one last thing I wanted to say, which is going to be a spoiler for the book, is I don't want anyone watching this review and hearing, if they have read The Fountainhead, they might be thinking at this time of the scene in the book, the part of the book where Rourke forcibly has sex with Dominique for the first time. The thing is about that scene, that's not the scene I'm talking about where I say that he's sexy. Would not be okay in a modern novel. I don't think anyone would be alright with that being written in a novel today. But although there are some scenes like that, a bit like that in Game of Thrones, I suppose. But in the book, it's justified. It's described as a rape. They don't try to hide it and say that it wasn't rape. Dominique says that she was raped, and Rourke kind of admits to raping her, but he only does it because he's so certain that she's in love with him, or that she's attracted to him, or that she wants him to do it. He's absolutely certain that she wants him, and that's why he rapes her, and because he wants her as well, obviously. But I think in real life that's so wrong. There's absolutely no way for a real person to be able to tell whether someone wants to have sex with them that badly. I mean, you just can't be certain in that ways. And she fights him off. She doesn't give in like a. I don't know if you've seen High Plains Drifter with Clint Eastwood, but he rapes like 2 women in that film. But it's not. But this is even worse than that, because in High Plains Drifter, at least the woman that he has sex with kind of melt in his arms. They try and force him off them while he's kissing them, and then they kind of go, oh, okay then, and then they enjoy it, and then they love it. But I mean, that's his whole own thing. I mean, I think both in High Plains Drifter and this is like completely unacceptable. Thank you for watching, and please leave your comments. If you think I should read Atlas Shrugged even after reading The Fountainhead, then please give a good reason, because it's a very long book. So I'm going to need a pretty good reason to read it if it's essentially the same as The Fountainhead. Well, if you think it's not the same as The Fountainhead, give me a good reason why, okay? Right, thanks for watching. Bye!